The second method I want to show you for how to remove all this material for the half laps is to use a router with a bushing guide and 2 guide rails. In the first video, I showed you how to use a track saw, but if you don't have a track saw and you do have a router, this is another way to do it and get the same results. As a quick reminder, I've got all these 4x4s clamped together so I can cut everything all at once. And we're trying to do a bunch of half laps. So we're cutting out half of the material on these ones, and eventually we'll cut out half the material on these ones. So for the router, you're gonna wanna choose a router bit that at least goes down half the depth of those boards. And then you're gonna wanna choose one of these bushing inserts that's just the right size for your router bit to fit in. And on the OF 1400, they've made it really easy for these bushings just to clip right in place. Then you can put your bit in and push this button to tighten it down. Then you're gonna wanna take a measurement from the very edge of your bit to the edge of the bushing. And that will let you know how far back from the line to set your guide rail so you cut perfectly on the line. And then you're gonna wanna transfer those lines down to your workpiece. And then for this next part, I'm gonna use 2 tracks as my router guides and set them on the lines and clamp them down, and then my router can't go outside of those. Now you don't have to use tracks, you just have to use something that's straight and that's not so high that it makes that your router bit can't reach all the way down. So you could just use strips of plywood or some lumber as long as it was nice and straight, so you get nice straight lines. Something else I wanna point out real quick is that I've left this first one inside of that first groove that I cut. And that way it's holding everything nice and straight, even though I do have it clamped on both sides. You don't wanna have anything shift, or else when you go to put the grid together afterwards, those little differences can really make a headache trying to get things to fit together. So now I'm just gonna line up these guides with those marks that I made and clamp them down. And then you'll see on the bottom here, there's this bushing that pokes up. So now when I go put the router on top, it rides on top of these rails, but it can't go any further left or right because those rails are holding it in place. And the bit is right inside that bushing, and I can plunge down and make the cuts that I need. So now I'll come down here and set the maximum depth that I'm looking for. I won't cut to the full depth all at once. I'll take a bunch of different passes, but I want to set the maximum depth right now so that I know when I hit that stopper, then that's as far as I have to go. So I'll plunge the router down all the way until I just meet that line. And then I'll tighten up this lock on the router so it can't go back up. And then I'll loosen this knob right here, which will drop that stopper down. And then I'll tighten that back up. And now the router can't go down past that point. And now with the router hooked up to power and the vacuum, I can start plunging down and making my way across this one step at a time until I get all the way down to the bottom. Okay, and now the moment of truth to test and see if it fits as well as the first one did. And actually I'm gonna leave this one on right here, just in case I'm a little narrow. I always try to err on the side of being a bit too narrow, and then that way if you have to take a little bit more off, that's okay, versus being too wide and there's nothing you can do about it. So I'll leave that one there just in case it's too narrow, and then I can just tap it over a little bit to get that last little bit off. Okay, that one fits good. And looks like I got away without having to shift that track over a little bit. Now I've got one more video to make where I'm going to show you a third method to cut out this one.